What's happening, everybody? Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast. And believe it or not, we are already in week 7. Week 7. Now, this is the midpoint for your average fantasy gamer's regular season. Not everybody makes the playoffs like me, like you, because you listen to the Dynasty WarZone. Gonna have a big week, but I've got a big co-host. I gotta make sure that I bring on with me, you know it, as one half of the World Dynasty Tag Team Champions. He is the man of the hour and the man with the power. He is Jerry Sinclair. Jerry, what is up?
Yo, my friend, your intros get better and better by the day, week in, week out, always doing good. We are a good tag team. And listen, we're jumping off the top rope today, so I am ready for it. And you can hear it in my voice, Randy. I mean, we are getting to the nitty-gritty of the fantasy season, my friend. We're knowing who is pretending, we're knowing who is contending, and we're manipulating all of them.
We're doing so well that I'm going to send you a can of WD-40 to take care of that squeaky office chair in the palatial estate of one Gerald J. Sinclair. There, but no, man, you're right. And trade action is going in all my leagues. I'm actually starting to field offers again. The contenders have slowly started to separate themselves from the pretenders, and starting to see a little bit of action. But tonight's topic, so again, we're at the midpoint of the fantasy regular season, and we're going to take a quick snapshot at some season-to-date player values. And you know, it used to be in Dynasty, you had to look at players in like a 1 to 3 year build cycle. Jerry, I don't think the world operates like that anymore. I mean, you can go as far as like the example I wrote down for the intro was DJ Moore. We're not going to talk a lot about him, but you know, it was only, what is it? It's the middle of October, so 2 months ago before the season, DJ Moore was hotter than the surface of the sun, and now he's had a bad not even really that bad if you look at his overall stats. He's had a slower than anticipated start, and it's already had an impact on his value.
And that kind of stuff is just going to keep continuing too, because this is no longer. I remember when we had the famous AJ Green and Amari Cooper argument a couple years ago. It was 3-year cycles that everyone kept talking about, and you just mentioned it. Now it's 3-week cycles. It feels like it at least. At least everybody is so reactionary that it feels like it's that.
So we're going to jump in. We're going to talk about some guys we've got to take an early L on, and then but there might be a couple of small victory laps, just something to toot our own horn a little bit, for lack of a better term. And then we're going to give you one buy and one sell each, a little segment we're going to try to make sure we add in, because this is the Dynasty show. Now, the Devy show, look at that segue, Jerry. The Devy show, we're going to record that this coming weekend. This should be the maiden voyage for Josh Dysinger. We'll have Jerry, we'll have Kane, we'll have Shane, we'll have the gang all together, and we're going to talk about some college goodness. The Big Ten is back in business. I want to know, because I am the voice of you, the fan. Jerry's the pro, Shane's the pro, all these guys are pros, but I am the Joe. I am the guy just like you, out there learning, taking notes, writing stuff down. I want to know about Journey Brown. I want to know about Justin Fields. I want to know about Justin Bateman as we get this October edition of the Devy WarZone. Jerry, are you ready for me to be the voice of the fan?
Yeah, absolutely. And there is going to be some big Journey Brown news. He just had a little bit drop yesterday, so tune in for that. Yeah, man. And I'm just excited because I get to watch Big Ten football, because I'm a huge fanboy. It's really the conference that I'm obsessed with, because it's what's around me. I'm excited, man. Listen, I'm always excited to just sit and talk with those dudes, because they are smart as hell. They know things and players that I have just never even heard of, and I just get to write them down.
Now this one could be like me herding cats, like me herding wild barn cats, because Kane is a University of Minnesota fan, Josh is a University of Wisconsin fan, you are a big fan of Sparty, Michigan State, and then our man Shane P. Hallam, a big fan of Ohio State. We did not intend to have all of the co-hosts of the WarZone be Big Ten aficionados. It just happens to be how it worked out. So I'm very excited to try to keep you guys in line, on task, and presenting the information for the consumer. And I'll tell you some other information that's been doing well financially, if you've been following me and Dr. Kyle, is the Big Bet podcast. We look to continue our winning ways. I am 22, 16 and 1 on the season, and on my big bets I'm 4 and 2. If it wasn't for the god-darned Jets, but that will drop on Thursday morning in your podcast feed, and Wednesday night live on YouTube with Dr. Kyle. Just an absolutely informative show, and you don't have to gamble because it's not legal in a lot of states right now. I think maybe 10 out of the 50. But we do a DFF, that's the old Dynasty Football Factory days, Jerry, a DFS, a daily fantasy sports segment, where I have dubbed myself, Jerry. Do you know what my new nickname is on the Big Bet as it relates to DFS?
Oh, what is it?
I am Mr. Mincash. Like there's Gardner Minshew, I am Mr. Mincash. I am good to help you set a roster. Like I will lock in 6 to 7 of the ideal plays, but I'll miss on like 2 to 3 that will really hamper me from winning the big money, but just enough money to, like this past week, I turned my $4 entry into $7.50. $7.50 is cash money, and enough to do it again. But we cover all that. We cover the games that we cover have so much impact from a gambling, a DFS, and a head-to-head lineup setting phase. So make sure you're checking that out. An awful lot of fun. And again, Dr. Kyle is a board-certified doctor of physical therapy. We cover some injury stuff. And then he really, really shines on YouTube. And a big tip of the cap to our buddy Matty Big Chest, at Matty Big Chest on Twitter. His real name is Matthew Poole. He is a professional. He's working on becoming an accountant. And yes, that is real lightning and real thunder.
I was wondering what that was.
Here on the mean streets of Indianapolis, we are getting some much-needed rain. And but back to my buddy Matty Big Chest. Him and Dr. Kyle are killing the Twitter content and the YouTube content. They have it on Mondays. Matt jumps in with his Dynasty quick takes. It might take him 7 to 10 minutes. Then he gets with Dr. Kyle on Tuesday. They do an immediate injury update going into the weekend on Tuesday. Gives you time to set that waiver wire priority so that you can get those redraft and even some deep dives in Dynasty. You can get those waiver wires set. Jerry and I do the Dynasty WarZone on Tuesday night. Kyle and I do the big bet on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, Friday, there's more Dynasty content and another injury update. So if you're not following us on YouTube, first of all, thank you to all of those of you that have subscribed in the last week. Means a ton.
And secondly, did you hear all of the names that this man just rattled off? How much more can you want?
Every day of the week, we're trying to provide some kind of content for you, and it's all free. We'll talk about the Patreon here in a minute, but Jerry, thank you for doing that. And I've got a whiteboard. And I've got days off, and I have got content to record. I'm trying to get better. So I will admit, I am the host of the show. It's Jerry and me. We are the Dynasty WarZone, along with Matt and Kyle. But this weekend, I'm looking to get my audio right. I've got a consultation with Matty. So if you're watching on the YouTube, the audio quality on my end will be better. And then Jerry, I'm back on the contractor. I've got my tool belt, I've got my hard hat, and I'm going back to the Dynasty Happy Hour contractor with a guest named Patrick this week.
And I can only imagine what's going to happen week 6 going into week 7 with a team like that. This is the time when the strategy for what you're going to do is so critical. So tune into the contractor. Listen to Randy. Listen. There's a really good chance that you're in a league with Randy because he's in 134 of them. Get into his mind here. See what this man wants to do, and then emulate it. If I could give you any advice, emulate the man's strategy because it's good. Don't nod your head. I don't want to know. Listen, you're going to take some victory laps later.
Don't be humble. I
No.
am the man. No, and we do a lot of good work over on the Dynasty Happy. You have to be following that show on the Dynasty Happy Hour feed. Can't wait to get that going. It's been too long. Just some stuff. Like I said, I've been really busy and really focusing on the Dynasty WarZone stuff. And do us a quick favor. We're going to talk about some sponsors and ways that you could support the pod financially. But if you're not in the ability to do so, we would love a 5-star review. And we would love to review your trade. So it's a trade. You give us a 5-star review in the trade, in the comments, you put your trade in there. All the particulars, number of owners, scoring format, yada, yada, yada. You put that in there, and Jerry and I will cover that on this podcast 100% for free, and that is 100% the freest way you can help Jerry or I. If you don't dabble, Jerry, I heard an interesting stat the other day. Only 20% of adults are on Twitter, which means there's a good chance that 80% of our listeners right now are not on Twitter. So if you need something from me or Jerry, you can reach the show. It's dynastywarzone@gmail.com. Just send us an email. I've helped many a person that way, and want to make sure that we call out the Dynasty Warzone on Instagram and Twitter. And Jerry, we have talked and promoted enough. These people are here for the Dynasty. Are you ready to talk some Dynasty?
I am always ready to talk Dynasty.
It's the best part of the show. It's the one thing that I love about doing all the other stuff, doing the Debbie Warzone, doing the Big Bet, doing the YouTube stuff, is it allows this baby, the OG, the original show, to really focus on Dynasty. And just real quick, before we take some L's on some players this season, I want to make sure to tell you somewhere where you won't take an L. That's Viridian Global. Last week we had Will Harris on of Viridian Global, and they're our official apparel provider. If you're looking to get some of that sweet, sweet Dynasty Warzone merch, you just head over to Viridian Global. That's Veridian, Viridian Global, and check it out, man. They've got hoodies, they've got tees, they've got raglans, they've got stuff. And we kind of broke the news a little bit last week. We are going to have a military-themed salute to service. And even though it was a Dynasty Warzone original idea that we stole from the NFL, how about that? We are going to be doing a special edition, November only, when they're gone, salute to service inspired t-shirt with a small portion of the proceeds going to a military-based charity. So you got to head over to Viridian Global. Keep an eye out. Just follow them on Instagram. Follow them on Twitter, Viridian Global, and you'll see all this stuff. Our boy Matty recently released the Hawk-A-Mania. Not Hulkamania, that would be copyright infringement. This is Hawk, as in T.J. Hawkinson. It's written in a very similar Hulkamania font, wink wink, but it says Hawkamania. It's a DWZ original over at Viridian Global. Jerry, before you tell me about the first player that you're going to take an L on, have you seen the Hawkamania shirt?
Of course. Listen.
How beautiful is it, and how many do you have on order?
I do have the blue one on order, but that's none of your damn business, Randy. I mean, listen, Hawk's been good, so I gotta like him. It's not a Matt Patricia, Viridian Global T-shirt. While the quality would be good, I will let you know that I would not purchase it. But that Hawkamania brother, I'm in on that.
Oh, we got to put brother on the back. You just gave me a great idea. We can do once they fire Matt Patricia. On the front, we can do a laminated piece of paper. So we could do it like a math equation. Laminated piece of paper plus pencil equals fired. How about that?
Bought, sold, American. I'll do it in Aussie money if any of the Patreons want to send me some of it. In there.
There you go.
God, I hate that guy so much. Anyway, let's talk about some Dynasty.
Take an L. You want to take a rookie L, or do you want to take a veteran L?
We'll do the rookies because honestly, I actually did pretty good on the rookies, so I'm gonna not stay humble with this one. None of the guys that I really loved have really crapped the bed. Zach Moss is definitely one of them, though. He was a guy that I liked. He fights for his yards. He did all that. How many times did you hear me say that this offseason? Devin Singletary's pretty good, but if Zach Moss was going to be good, he could have shown up. He could have taken that job. He hasn't. I mean, I know he was hurt, but even when he was in, nothing that suggests that he's going to be an asset that you're clamoring over. I'll say that. And is slightly, I'm also going to say Justin Herbert, just because I really didn't see him coming in and just immediately being awesome. Like, I thought he was a fine pick where he was going, and I thought he was a great value. But as far as if I would have bet on whether I thought he was going to be the guy that shows out immediately, I would have bet against that, and that has been so wrong.
Yeah, your man Zach Moss has been cheeks to this date of the season. I was looking at his stats on the season: 22 attempts for 58 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 receptions for 16 yards, 1 touchdown. Just not been good, man. Not been good. He's played 3 games. He's averaging about 5.5 PPR points a game. And I know you liked him coming out. We heard good things about him coming into camp. If I were, would you be buying or selling Zach Moss right now?
I mean, can you sell Zach Moss right now, though? So, I mean, I think
buy.
that answer has...
So, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
You would sell him?
No, I would buy him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think you really
have...
could sell him right now. So I would have to say he's a buy, but I mean, I'm not spending anything crazy.
I would give you a third, or I'm going to look to get him to be that sweetener on the back end of the trade. Here's the
there
thing.
You go.
He has, again, not looked very good this entire season. But I will say, neither has Devin Singletary. To act like either one of these guys has a chokehold on this starting job, that has not been determined. And Buffalo has a bye coming up in Week 11, but and they've played, you know, some pretty easy run defenses. I mean, the Raiders are 22nd against the rush, Titans 27, the Chiefs 28. They've got the Jets this coming weekend 19. But then it'll start to clamp down a little bit. In the Dynasty playoffs, you have got the Steelers, you have got the Broncos, and you have got the Patriots. All 3 of those teams are top 5 against the rush. I think he's the kind of guy that, again, if I could get him thrown in as a sweetener on the back end of a deal and see what this team does in the offseason. Because here's the thing, if you get him cheap and he becomes something, you can sell him off and make that profit, that flip profit. If you buy him cheap and he ends up becoming, you know, Bishop Sankey, and you just cut him and move on down the line to the next good player, and you burn a third, or it didn't pan out on the back end of your trade. Now, Jerry, I went big. I went with a much bigger name, and you can go ahead and start giving me hell. Justin Jefferson. Now, in our hot take show, I said he was my rookie wide receiver, because it is fact that about 40-ish% of these rookies will bust. And after a slow start to the season, I firmly had Justin Jefferson in that category. Jerry, what have you seen with JJ? And I will continue to take this L.
I was a fan, but I also don't hate Kirk Cousins as much as other people do. And I thought he could come into a very nice situation, and he has. He's been good. I mean, what else is there to say? That is an L, and it happens. I think your reasoning for not trusting him was a good one, in that Kirk Cousins
can I call it a moderate L, not a huge L? Now, I know you're thinking, you said he was going to be a bust. And my pushback would be, is he's really only had 2.5 really good games. In 2 games where they've been absolutely blown out and the opposing team has just allowed them to just throw the ball at will. Because if you go back and watch this Atlanta game for the first half, he really wasn't doing anything. And as that Atlanta lead grew, the Atlanta defense softened a little bit, and he started to find weaknesses. He had 11 targets, he had 9 catches for 166 and 2 tutties, which is great. But I didn't hear any of this, the week before, when they were, he was getting 3 receptions on 5 targets for 23 yards.
And the unfortunate thing about that was when everyone was starting him, because he had the back-to-back big weeks, and then people were confident, and then they started him, and that happened. So I get it. And listen, the man's got room to grow. It's a good sign. It's a good thing to see. I am buying on it. I don't know if I'm going to be purchasing at this point, because we've seen 3 of the last 4 weeks that have just been great. And I don't think that's entirely reliable, and I think the value is going to take a dip at some point, even within this season. If you let it get to the offseason, though, Randy, I think the sizzle's going to be too much. I think you will have missed your opportunity.
He could very well be as hot as like Terry McLaurin or DJ Moore were this past offseason. Jerry, you do know how I love to sing badly on this podcast. You know what JJ Justin Jefferson's going to give you the rest of the season?
What is he giving me?
Roller coaster. Ooh, 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 roller coaster. Oh, sorry. I just like to sing occasionally. I didn't say I was very good at it, but it's going to be a roller coaster ride. You're going to have those games like he had weeks 1 and week 2 where he had 2 for 26 or 3 for 44. And then you're going to have these monster games where he has 7 for 175 and a touchdown. Or, again, 9 for 166 and 2 touchdowns. But you know what? It's one of those things we talked about at the beginning of the show. Dynasties have become very fickle as we've added newer Dynasty players to the Dynasty landscape, which is great. I love hearing staunch, old school, dyed-in-the-wool redraft podcasts like the Fantasy Footballers. I love hearing those guys talk about Dynasty. I think it's great. They have a huge platform, and that brings more new listeners to this show. And thank you to all of you new people who are downloading and listening to the WarZone. But don't be swayed by a bad game, or 2 or 3 if he stitches 2 or 3 together. It's a long game with these rookies. He's going to wind up with a very nice season. Again, he's got 3 games over 100 yards. He's easily going to top 1,000. The NFL, people, but don't fall for this trap. At the end of the season, you're going to say, he is one of 4 rookies to ever have 1,000 yards with Randy Moss. Guys, that's the banana in the tailpipe. The NFL that Randy Moss played in, the NFL that Calvin Johnson played in, was a different NFL than we play in today. You can't breathe on a wide receiver without getting a PI flag. The league is made for offense. So even though it's a great stat, don't fall for it. But I'm taking the L, Jerry. I'm going to take my L. It's a presumptive L, but he is not going to be a bust, and he could actually wind up being one of the better wide receivers in his class. So, Jerry, anything else on him? And then tell me who's your veteran L.
Yeah, so, no, I think that was it for Justin Jefferson. But if you're going to take an L on Justin Jefferson, the worst L that any of us have taken on this offseason is mine, and it's Juju. Randy, I am going to say some foul language right here. What in the fuck has happened to Juju Smith-Schuster? My goodness gracious, it is an abomination. This man came out, and the first week, he was sort of lifted up by the 2 touchdowns. He still only had 69 yards. Nice. Since then, let's just talk about the last 2 games. You know how many points the Pittsburgh Steelers scored the last 2 games, Randy?
I know they had 39 against the Eagles. I don't remember last week.
They have scored 76 points in the last 2 weeks. Juju Smith has 6 catches for 34 yards and no touchdowns. I repeat, what in the fuck happened to Juju Smith-Schuster? Now, that is a loss of epic proportions on me, because I really thought this man was going to come in, and with a healthy Ben Roethlisberger, he was just going to feast. Wrong. Let me look into the camera. Wrong. With a capital W, or a capital R if you're a bad speller. Oh my God, that was a piss poor call. Here's my thing, though. I am not entirely panicking. If you have Juju, for the love of all that is good, you're going to just have to ride this one out. Because our man, Shane P. Hallam, actually tweeted out something pretty good about him today. The man is still younger than Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin and DJ Chark and Cortland Sutton. He's got opportunities. He's going to be a free agent. Hopefully, just a new scenery happens. I don't really know. And if you try selling him now, it's too late, Randy, and I think you agree with me on that. You're not even getting 50 cents on the dollar for this man. So
what you're going to get is robbed. You're going to get robbed if you try to move Juju right now. So I guess shameless plug alert. I jumped on with a couple of really great guys in the Dynasty Bros. And that should be dropping if you're listening to this Dynasty WarZone on October 21st. The Dynasty Bros episode that I appeared on also would be dropping in your podcast player on the 21st. And we were talking about DJ Moore being someone who's somewhat disappointed. Not Juju level disappointed, but has disappointed to this point in the season. Here's the thing. He's still averaging about 6 targets a game. I know we haven't seen it lately, and what makes it sting even more is seeing Chase Claypool do it. You're seeing Chase Claypool do it. That's cool. So, Jerry, do you know, and yes, you're right to take the L on Juju, by the way, but do you know who is $68 million over next year's projected cap?
Is it the Steelers?
It is. Check out the big brain. You see, Jerry's a smart son of a bitch. Write that down. But he is going to be a free agent. This team is $68 million under the cap. They clearly like what they've seen out of Chase Claypool as his role continues to grow. When his back's not hurt, they like Deontay Johnson. And then there's still the James Washington on a rookie deal. So I think Juju is firmly going to walk in the offseason. And he could link up with, he could be the slot replacement for Julian Edelman in Carolina, but in New England. He could find himself in being the slot option replacing a Randall Cobb in Houston. There are plenty of teams that could really, really use the services. What about down in Miami with the newly minted Tua Tagovailoa? There is going to be opportunities out there because this year it's going to be like going to the rummage sale in the really rich neighborhood where all the good stuff is. That's what this year's class is going to be because there's a lot. This is a great class of talent, but because of the salary cap reduction due to the loss of revenue due to no fans in the stands, it's really going to make this a buyer's market. And don't be surprised if your boy Juju gets snapped up. And to go back to my conversation again with the Dynasty bros, you're disappointed because Juju's not getting the volume to meet the value that you paid for him. So you're just going to have to hold fast. You don't want to give up pennies on the dollar. If you're competing, you're doing it because Juju, you're doing it in spite of Juju. And if you're tanking, you're doing it because of Juju. So just hang in there. Because if you want to sell him, the opportunity to sell Juju is going to be in March or April when he's on a new roster, and hope springs eternal. How about that for a turn of phrase, Jared?
Gotta love it. Always a professional. The other thing is we've sort of seen this situation before with Allen Robinson. The dude had a 1,400-yard season, just like Juju did, and then he had an 800-yard season, and then he got hurt. And he was sort of getting cast off. And look where we're at with the value on Allen Robinson. What? Year 6, year 7, whatever Allen Robinson's at. Still an elite asset to own and a wanted commodity. So just because it's not looking great now does not mean that Juju is going to be nothing. And I think I speak for everyone when you mention the idea of him possibly being in Houston replacing Randall Cobb. It gave me a chill down my spine, and I got a little more excited than I want to admit.
What if he stays in the state of Pennsylvania and goes over to be, not that they can afford it, they have cap hell all of their own, but what if he was to stay in the state of Pennsylvania and go work with Carson Wentz, who is currently the QB like 9 or 10 with crumb bums and shoe clerks? You think Carson Wentz would like to work with a guy like Juju?
I am certain that he would, and we're going to talk about him later, but let's keep this ball rolling.
All right, what about your boy Matty Stafford? Juju working the slot, your boy Godwin working the outside. They got to re-sign Galladay, not Godwin. They got to re-sign Galladay. But my guy I've got to take the L on from a veteran perspective is none other than Alvin Kamara. I was the one who was concerned about the back injury. I was the one who was concerned about the epidural. If you've kept him but in fairness, I did say you needed to wait till he had a few good games to be able to move him. Hey, trick question. He's not had a bad game. He continues to do nothing but absolutely rake. You know who's the RB1? Alvin Kamara. You know who's the RB1 even though he had his bye week? It's Alvin Kamara. Forget the fact that he's not had, he's averaging 56 yards a game rushing. No one gives a shit. It's that beautiful PPR work. He's averaging 9 targets a game, and he's averaging 7.5 receptions a game for 80 yards. He's giving you 16 PPR points, whether or not he falls in the end zone, whether or not he has any rushing yards. And gang, that's not likely to change. Jared Cook had, I think it was a groin injury going into the bye. You'll get slant guard Mike. You'll get the slant specialist Michael Thomas back. But here's the thing: he was getting this volume in game one with Michael Thomas. So he is going to continue. But I also continue to say, what's his role in this offense going to look like in 2021 without Drew Brees? Drew Brees is going to hang him up. So for 2020, I have to certainly take the L. But if there was ever the opportunity, and it happens, guys, because Jerry, you remember what Forrest Gump said? Shit happens. Shit, sometimes it happens. Well, shit happens. You could own Alvin Kamara, and due to injuries to like Dak or Mike Thomas or Galladay missed a couple of games or Kittle missed a couple of games, you could be out of contention. If there was ever a time to sell off Alvin Kamara for a king's ransom, now is the time. We don't know what the future holds. It doesn't change the fact that he's had epidurals 2 off seasons in a row. We don't know what his future is going to be like, and this very well could be the apex of his dynasty value. So I was completely wrong about his 2020, but he has given us as dynasty owners a gift. He has given us a gift because Drew Brees is one of the, I would say, 2 best check down quarterbacks in all of football history. Him and Phillip Rivers. Is there anyone who checks down better than those 2? Top of your head, Jerry? Anybody?
I mean, not really, especially Drew Brees now.
Drew Brees. I mean, Drew Brees. Think about Pierre Thomas, Darren Sproles, Tim Hightower, and obviously Alvin Kamara is way more talented than all those guys. But that doesn't change the fact that his role is going to change somewhat. It just has to, because Drew Brees is not going to be there. So you've been given a great opportunity. You can turn my L into your W and kick tires, Jerry, because I can only imagine what you would get for him. What would you want for Alvin Kamara?
I mean, you're getting whatever you want if you're selling Alvin Kamara, because people want him. And just a little spoiler, I was going to say Michael Thomas for a lot of those reasons in our veteran sell that we were trying to get out from under. I didn't end up doing it, but I'm going to let you know that if I have Michael Thomas in the league, I'm probably about done with him. And I'm going to be trying to do the same exact thing, because that offense is going to be totally different without Drew Brees, and I don't really know what to expect. And to think that they are going to be valued at the same place that they are now, no, I'm good on that. Especially running backs. Running backs are so volatile that it's just up and down and up and down, especially when you're these elite ones. It takes a little bit, and then all of a sudden you're in the second round of ADP, which isn't too bad unless you struggle again. And now all of a sudden you're Todd Gurley and you're in the 6th round of ADP, all in 18 months. That's why I don't like to build around running backs, and I'm with you. I mean, it's situational, of course. Like, if Alvin Kamara is going to win you your championship, take your money, take your trophy, flip your friends off, and then be gone with that. But in a vacuum, yeah, I'm with you.
All right, well, we're going to move on to our next segment, where we're going to take a mid-season victory lap. But before we do, we want to make sure to shout out the Patreon. Dude, last week we had no Thursday night football due to the game with the Bills and the Chiefs being moved to Monday night because of that Rona. And we used that time to do our first ever Patreon parking lot party. And Jerry, I know you were tied up, you had real life stuff going on, but I jumped on a live stream with about, I don't know, it was like 6, 8, 10 of the Patreons. We had to cycle some in and cycle out. We had Matt jumped on with us. And dude, we just talked football and we talked life, and we got to put faces to names, and it was a hell of a good time. And that's the number one thing that I will tell you that we do at the Dynasty WarZone Patreon. It's a fellowship, it's a community, and some of our newest members like Alex, Will, Carl, Jeremy, Baylor, Brett, that was in my conversations in the onboarding process into the group chat. That's what these guys have told me. Hey, this is why I wanted to be a Patreon. You talk so much about the group chat, and it's great. Not everybody's as active as everybody else, but it's a platform where ideas are bounced about. We had the great J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift debate last Thursday night.
Yes, we did.
Hey, look, pal. One game in, I'm on the right side of history right now. But that's what we
And
do at the
it's
Patreon,
true.
and we build great rosters, and we build friendships. Two of our Patreons jumped into an IDP league with me that has nothing to do with the Dynasty WarZone or the Patreon. But these two guys, it was a bit of a pricey buy-in. They're like, hey, let's split this and run it together, and now they're buddies. So if you're looking for a place, if your league chat is dry, maybe it's full of the best people on earth, but if there's no conversation and no interaction, no community, we can offer you that. Go over to patreon.com/Dynasty Warzone. Check it out. Come grow with us. Come hang out with us, and let's do good things. Jerry, do you, speaking of growing, do you want to take a victory lap and let your dome, your head, your ego grow on a rookie or a veteran?
We'll do it on the rookie just because this one's pretty easy. I'm not a huge fan of victory laps. If you've been a listener of the Dynasty Wars, and you know I am quite the self-deprecating type. But Cam Akers sucks. Sorry, haters gonna hate. No, he's just that situation. It seemed so obvious that there was so many other guys that were there, and he was never going to jump in and just be this superstar that people thought he was going to be. And this man came back, and he's done okay here. Let's see what we got. He had the good game against the football team. That's a really good start that you could pull that one off. And then last week he came back. Mind you, Darrell Henderson been doing pretty well. He played one snap. This man was healthy. This man was drafted in the second round. This man played one snap. Stop it. This offense has been pretty good. They've been scoring until this last week, scoring over 30 points several times. Darrell Henderson has shown that he can handle this, and Malcolm Brown didn't die either. And Cam Akers is going to get some love, and Cam Akers is going to show some things throughout the season, and those are going to be the things that people fell for. If you want me to be honest, they saw those things at Florida State and went, okay, this guy can do it. The problem is he doesn't do it all the time. It's a situation that was not conducive to consistent success. If he was the guy and not James Robinson in Jacksonville, I would not be having this conversation because he would have far more production, and he'd be David Montgomery. He would just be a guy that gets enough work to make him relevant, and that's that. I will take the victory lap on Cam Akers, because if there was one person that when I rained on somebody's parade about Cam Akers, it was that dude, and I got some venom for it. Right there.
Well, Jerry is telling me and the YouTube audience that they are number one, and I agree. I always had Cam as my running back 5 in this class, and it's not that he lacks athleticism. I don't know if he's gun shy after having the hell beat out of him for the last couple of years in Florida State, but I'll just say this: sometimes a head coach will tell you the truth. And Sean McVay said that this is going to be a 3-man running back field. I'm going to play the hot hand. One thing that we say, this is like a little mini victory lap, is that we said Malcolm Brown wasn't going anywhere. Sean McVay believes in him. Sean McVay trusts him. And we know that offensive line's not horrible, but it's gotten better, quite honestly. Played much better than I would have thought to date. But they trust, Malcolm Brown in there when the chips are down. And it wasn't like they spent any much more draft capital on Cam Akers than they did on Darrell Henderson the year before. So maybe next year Akers is more involved. But remember, Jerry's Detroit Lions was going to try to sign Malcolm Brown to an offer sheet. And Les Snead and Sean McVay ran right out and said, no, absolutely not. We will match that offer. So
and that was with Todd Gurley and Darrell Henderson.
And that was with Todd Gurley and Darrell Henderson. So now, get rid of Gurley and adding Cam Akers. They like Malcolm Brown. So you've got him at this point. It goes back to volume and value. He's not getting any volume, judging by his one snap last week. So you're not feeling any value. You're feeling that pinch. You just have to hold on.
Yeah.
If you can get him thrown in on the back end of a bigger trade. You know what? We're close. Throw in Cam Akers. He's not done anything. Throw him in there. Maybe year 2 he will break out. I know it was said about Darrell Henderson last year. This offense with Sean McVay is very complex. Darrell Henderson did not pick it up right away. It took him an off season, and now we see Darrell Henderson flourish. Maybe with a good off season, that could be Cam Akers. But I'm with Jerry for now. Jerry, are you ready for my victory lap?
Yeah, and hold on, just before
Okay.
you get going, just
Sure.
all right, take it away, my friend. This is a good one, and this is well deserved. So take
Well,
it.
this is, but I'm only going to take partial credit because I fell victim to Twitter, and I feel horrible saying that. But Justin Herbert, I was out there. I had my Oregon Ducks pom poms. This guy looks like a young Bodie from the original Point Break. I was a big fan. I raved about his 4 years at Oregon. He had 43 college games. He didn't play with a lot of pro talent there in Oregon. And I like the fact that the kid's smart. And I let the Twitter world push him to my QB3 in this class. And I will say he has since rebounded back to my QB1. The guy is averaging 21.82 points a game through 4 games where he was never designed to be the starter. And Jerry, it's not like he's doing it against crumb bums and shoe clerks. He did it with 5 minutes notice against the Chiefs, who have just made Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen look pedestrian. He did it in Tampa Bay against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that made Aaron Rodgers look pedestrian. He did it to the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome on Monday Night Football. The kid is the goods. Now, do I think he's better than Joe Burrow? That's not for me to decide. My goal here and the goal of this show is to put fantasy points in your lineup each and every week. To this point, through his first 4 games, Mr. Herbert is putting 22 4-point per throwing touchdown points in your rosters. If you have Joe Burrow, he is putting 16.2, or about 5.5 less per game, or 75% of what Justin Herbert does. What they did in college at this point doesn't mean shit. It means less than shit. It means nothing. You know what? They both have good weapons. They both have this. But you know what? Justin Herbert's going to play in a lot of shootouts because he plays against the Chiefs and the Raiders, and we'll see what the Broncos are, while Mr. Burrow is getting his teeth kicked in against the Steelers and against the Ravens. And Tua, I'm excited to see Tua take the field when Miami comes back from the bye. But you know what? He gets to play the hoodie, and he gets to play Buffalo. Now, he will get a good game against the Jets, but I will just say this. I let the world talk me off of Justin Herbert. I have been very proud. It was a larger trade that I covered on the Patreon, but I did move a DJ Moore share, and there were some other pieces in there to get me a Justin Herbert. I couldn't be happier to take this mini victory lap on my man because he seems to be a good dude, and all these young quarterbacks are. But I'm really happy for him, and I'm happy that he stayed on the West Coast. I think Anthony Lynn will be fired in the offseason. Hopefully they bring in a solid offensive-minded head coach like an Andy Reid or someone like that, the guy Bieniemy from Kansas City, and then we can really see what this offense can do. Jerry, you know I love me some Justin Herbert.
Yep, and that was a miss. I had my biases came out in this guy because I watched him play against MSU in the Red Box Bowl, and it was one of the worst football games that offenses have ever seen. It set the sport back 150 years. The final was 7-6, and I was just not buying it because we weren't a good team. That's the problem with buying in and being influenced by Twitter. And listen, we're sitting on a podcast. We're trying to influence people too, but you need to grab every bit of information that you can and make the best judgments on your own. Just remember that there was people out there saying that Deshaun Watson did not have the arm strength to be an NFL quarterback, and those people are fucking stupid. And that happens. And Baker Mayfield was Dynasty QB too. There is dumbassery afoot everywhere in this community. Just take everything you can, learn from the mistakes you make. Justin Herbert was a great call, and you might not want to be bold enough to say that he's better than Joe Burrow. I am going to say it because I don't care about the X's and O's of football. I care about the fantasy points, and Justin Herbert's in a better situation, and he's He is much more likely to be started in that situation. But Randy, let's take a second victory lap for you, my friend. Who is the veteran at this point in the season that you just want to circle around and take a lap for?
I'm going to use this in my my buy and sell here in the final segment here in just a minute. But I'm using the term veteran loosely. He is a year 2 guy. He is Mr. Josh Jacobs. He was a guy that in our Patreon and on the Twitter box I was bowing up for quite a bit. And Jerry, there's been a lot of love for a gentleman named Ronald Jones on the world of social media. And let me just say this, Josh Jacobs has had his bye and has still scored more fantasy points on the year than Ronald Jones. That's not to take a cheap shot at Ronald Jones. That's merely to say that Josh Jacobs is a hell of a football player. He can win you weeks, evidenced by the 36 points that he had in week 1. And he had a good game before he went on by with 22.5. But he also never absolutely just breaks your back. His worst game of the year was 9.5 points, which isn't great, but is certainly better than some stinkers. Even Derrick Henry has had a 8.4 single game effort this year. And then we won't even go into Joe Mixon. But on a points per game basis, see, Jerry, the people come for the hits. They come for the hits, and if you go on a pure points per game basis, Josh Jacobs is averaging 18 points a game. That has him as running back 8, and just a guy that I couldn't be happier about because there was a lot of concern about his schedule with some of the rush defenses that he plays. Now he comes back from the bye. He plays the number 1 against the rush Buccaneers. Then he has the number 4 against the rush Browns. But then you got some decent matchups with the Chargers, with the Broncos, the Chiefs again. And coming down the stretch, he's gonna make you trust him. If you need that play-in game, he's gonna have the Jets in Week 13, and then he does get the Colts. That's not great, but he's earned it. He has earned his spot every week in your fantasy lineup, and I'm a huge fan of this guy. What about you, Jerry? You love Josh Jacobs, and I want to know your thoughts on Josh Jacobs. So when you're done, I want to hear about your guy.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Jacobs is stud. There's nothing more. If there was ever a guy that is he just feels good when you have him on your lineup. He's a young guy. He's a productive guy. He gets all the work. It's a good situation. I love Josh Jacobs. I'm glad that we got to talk about him just because the dude's awesome. And he's got the bye behind him. Rojo, just to give Rojo a quick plug, good on him, man. If there was another guy that I was wrong on, Ronald Jones was one of them. But my guy was Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs leaves Minnesota. He goes to Buffalo with Josh Allen, who has not been known to be the greatest of accurate quarterbacks in the league. And he's come back down to earth a little bit, but Stephon Diggs is just eating. He's scoring touchdowns. He's getting yards. He's getting peppered. He was a dude that was, 5th round in startup picks. He was sort of like the last guy of the relevant tier of wide receivers that you were just excited to have in your starting lineups, and a lot of people were down on him, and I scooped that dude up everywhere. I have so many shares of Stephon Diggs, and it's one of the major reasons that I have a lot of good teams this year. So hopefully that keeps happening, because I enjoy actually having winning teams. It's a weird new thing that I have going on.
So it's good to know that I'm rubbing off on you. It's good to know that the winning ways of Memphis have come over to your side.
It's the notebooks. I started writing them down. I didn't just ignore them anymore and think you were just old and senile. No, Stephon Diggs is, as far as consistent wide receivers are concerned, I mean, he's one of the top guys in the league. I mean, he hasn't had a bad game. He didn't have a great game last week, still found the end zone. Okay, thank you. If that's the worst I got to worry about, give me Stephon Diggs every single time. So, and the way Josh Allen is proving himself to be and showing that he is a better quarterback than I think most of us even saw coming, and that is even you, who was a big Josh Allen stan, it's good for things to come. I think Stephon Diggs is going to be just consistently a back end wide receiver 1 for the next few years, maybe a high end wide receiver 2, even for a majority until he hits past 30. I think this guy
He he's
is
not
in
even hit
there
his
like
super prime.
somewhere.
He's
No,
not even
that's what
hit
I'm
his
saying.
super prime. He's not even 27 until November. He is entering his super prime, and I love the pairing of him and now Stephon Diggs is low key one of my favorite players in the entire NFL. Cannot say enough good things. That is a fabulous choice, and I feel so vindicated. I'm gonna piggyback your victory lap, and I'm gonna take one on my own because people wouldn't let me do dumb. We don't do dumb, and I wanted to try to diversify some of my Stephon Diggs shares this past offseason. Let's just say everything's coming up Memphis. Now, Jerry, we have one more segment. This is they're going to be the closing segment of the show going forward. We're going to give them a buy and a sell. This is we're going to call this tomorrow's newspaper today, a player value segment. You know, we want to make sure that you see what we see. And we're not just going to say buy Gardner Minshew or buy Carson Wentz because I'm going to talk about some of those guys in just a second. I'm going to tell you why and when and how because I'm looking 6 months in advance. I'm not doing it based off what I've seen in the last 6 weeks. I'm giving you on where I see the situation going in the next 6 to 12 months. But this segment is going to be brought to you by my friends over at Hate Brand Goods. They just launched some more of the world famous goat shorts. They've restocked. If you've never checked them out and you're into working out and you like standing out, head over to Hate Brand. That's HVIII, the HVIII.com, and check them out, man. They continue to try to restock as fast as they can. They sell out, and much like we do with our t-shirts, they put everything in there in limited quantities. They also have the world famous Kick Today in the Dick coffee mug, shaker bottles for you protein bros. So if you head over to the HVIII.com, that's THEHVIII.com, and use promo code Memphis, and you'll save some money. And speaking of saving and buying and selling, Jerry, I'm just going to go ahead and give you my top buy. I'm bailing on Gardner Minshew. This is not a secret, but I'm going to give you some tools on how to sell this marvelous mustache. First of all, the problem with guys like Gardner Minshew as an owner is you probably picked this guy out of a crowd. You got him for next to nothing, and you don't want to sell. I really, at some point, I have a friend of mine. I used to work with her while she was in school. She is now a doctor of psychiatry. I would love to get her on to discuss this concept of, hey, I found this thing, in this case, this player. I nurtured him. I watched him grow. I watched him flourish. That's not the case with Mr. Minshew. You got to get him off your roster, and you got to do it ASAP. Ask yourself, what is the most likely outcome 6 months from now? Doug Marrone was almost fired last offseason. He's currently 1-5 in Jacksonville. The GM is terrible, and owner Shad Khan is gonna, he's gonna want to bring the thunder there. This is still my odds-on favorite to get a top 3 to 5 pick. Not only do we have to fade the names like Trevor Lawrence, the Jets have kind of got that locked up at this point. You got to fade Justin Fields. There's still the name Trey Lance. There's the Mac kid from Alabama. I've heard the name Trask, Kyle Trask. There's going to be, and then this Zach Wilson from BYU. Continue to hear big things about this guy. All of these guys are names that I've just mentioned, are names I've heard associated with first-round NFL draft capital. The Jags have an additional first-round pick from the Rams in the Jalen Ramsey deal this year. And a new GM, a new head coach, and a new offensive coordinator are going to want to put their stamp on this offense. And let's face it, the mighty Minshew, his QBR, the stat that Vegas uses as their metric of choice, with 52 being average, just slightly above 50. He has went from 78 to 75 to 41, back up to 65, down to 40. As the defense has gotten better, and this whole situation is part of the reason why I've not been so bullish on buying James Robinson, the rookie one in all of Dynasty scoring. And it's kind of crazy. If his name was J.K. Dobbins or Cam Akers, he'd be hotter than a $2 pistol right now. But he's not. So he's not. But back to Gardner Minshew, you can still sell this. Hey guys, they're not getting the 101. They're going to give Gardner another season. We don't know that. And for that reason, with quarterbacks playing bad, maybe someone was just banking on Fitzmagic to be their starter the rest of the year because they just thought he was going to be their guy. Fitzmagic is carrying asses right now in dynasty leagues, especially Superflex across this great land. Gardner has still given you great things, like he's the QB 14 overall in your basic 4-point per throwing touchdown, not too far off Teddy Bridgewater and ahead of Joe Burrow. You got to take all these positive attributes that I just mentioned and whatever else you can find on the man. Find an owner who just got Fitzmagic, who maybe got dacked, and say, hey man, I got you covered. Let's make a deal. And you know what? You can have the marvelous mustache for the next couple of years, and I'll take your 2021 first. Go win that championship, Mr. Contender. If you can get the 109 through 112, a contender's first for Minshew, you, my friend, are my hero. Jerry, give me some thoughts on the marvelous mustached Minshew, and then give me your top sell.
I loved every single bit of that. And the thing about being able to trade assets easily is the guys that have some numbers that can make it easy to sell. And when you have someone that is the 14th ranked quarterback and they're still sort of a young guy, people will fall for it every time. It's the cherry on top of the Dynasty Sunday of trading that has just made bad teams bad continuously and good teams good continuously. So I like that. I liked all your situations of doing it. Mine is, it's not one guy, it's a group of guys. It's the nostalgia running backs. The guys that Randy always wants to talk about when we talk about how people are obsessed with things that happened 4 years ago because they've heard the name. How many times did we talk about AJ Green in the first couple weeks of this season? About that dude was just going to be a bum and we didn't want any part of it. Guess what? He was a bum because he's old. And it has passed him by, and this is the nostalgia running backs. The Le'Veon Bells, the Melvin Gordons, the Leonard Fournettes. I know he's not super old, but sorry. Cooked like a book. David Johnson, those guys, I'm good on that, Randy. These guys are all on one-year contracts. They're all Melvin Gordon showed a little bit, then he got a DUI like a dipshit. David Johnson's getting some work. He's like what you want. Why do I keep bringing up David Montgomery? He's like what David Montgomery wants to be. Like where he gets like 17 touches and gets you 68 yards. And you're just, thanks, bud. You're like a better Frank Gore at this age. And Frank Gore is 71 years old. I don't want any of them. And you know how I'm going to trade them, Randy? I'm giving them away. I am going to trade another position group, whether it's a wide receiver or a running back, and I'm going to try to get someone that's of about equal value of that, and then I'm just throwing one of these guys in there because these are going to be dying assets quickly, and I don't care that I lose a trade if I can get rid of a dying asset quickly. That's how I would. If I have a wide receiver that's pretty good, but I like another guy, or maybe he's a little younger or something, and I'm worried that a situation's going to change, I'm going to try and get that guy, and I'm just going to throw Melvin Gordon in there. He had a big game a couple days ago or a couple weeks ago. Hit the 2 touchdowns. David Johnson's the guy while he's there. Now, if you're going to do it with Le'Veon, Randy, you got to do it quick, fast, and in a hurry. Because the moment that man takes a carry, his value is going to plummet. Because I'm sorry, I've seen the things that CEH can do. He's the guy there. I would love for Le'Veon Bell to come into that situation. I've been wanting it my whole life. It's just not going to happen. You know why I want that, Randy? Nostalgia. That's pride fucking with you is what that is. Marcellus Wallace taught me that.
Marcellus Wallace taught you that one. Yeah, you got to let go I'm a big James Robinson guy, but the minute I have James Robinson anywhere and I can get rid of him, I'm going to get rid of him. You can't cling to these guys because you've always loved them, or you can't cling to these guys because they're helping you and you found them. You know, we talk a lot about these guys. You've got to let these guys go, and you got to do it strategically. I'm going to give an owner credit as we were recording tonight. An owner in one of my leagues, he knows that I have been trying to contend. I'm 5-1 in this league, and I just lost Raheem Mostert, and my other two backs are Kareem Hunt and Devin Singletary. And he was very crafty. He offered me a couple of shitty running backs for just one first. Now I just turned that and countered, but you gotta respect the hustle. That's the hustle you got out there. Now, Jerry, I've got to warn you and the listener about this this next guy that I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to go on a smidge of a rant. Are you ready?
I am ready. I'm here. Let me just mute, and I'll just let you go.
Okay, Jerry has muted himself. Anyone who's telling you that Carson Wentz's job is in trouble, and guys, I've been trying to watch the F-bombs. I'll use them if I have to, because at some point we do want to, monetize the YouTube. That's the point of having a YouTube, is to, YouTube's a form of, media. And so I know they're not a big fan of foul language, so I'm probably not going to be able to monetize this episode. Anyone, it could be the top of the Dynasty industry, it could be the lowly guy on Twitter telling you to Carson Wentz's job's in trouble, is a fucking idiot. Okay, do you know how many starters are still on the Eagles starting roster this coming Thursday night versus the week one? So game one, week one, they had 11 guys. Of those 11 guys, they have 2 guys left, and Carson Wentz is one of them. I use this term all the time, crumb bums and shoe clerks. That man's not even being treated that well. Yet here he is. He's out here bootstrapping this team into winning games against the 49ers to pull in 2 points. Yeah, it was a shitty 2-point conversion against the Ravens. Did you see what the Ravens did to Joe Burrow and Baker Mayfield and a lot of other quarterbacks? And Carson Wentz just had a game with nobody. So get out your pencil, get out your paper, not laminated paper like Matt Patricia, but actual paper, and write this shit down. They play the Giants this week. Not as good of a matchup as you might think, as the Giants' defense is pretty good. Actually pretty good against the pass. Then they get 10 days rest, and they will play the Dallas Cowboys. Then after the game against the Dallas Cowboys, by the way, both of these games are at home, so it means no travel, which if you're into betting like I am, that means a lot. And then they're going to have their bye week. And then we're going to roll into week 9, and you're going to see Carson Wentz, and hopefully you're going to see Jalen Reagor, and hopefully you're going to see Dallas Goedert, and Zach Ertz, and Alshon Jeffrey, and Deshaun Jackson, and Lane Johnson, and so many more. And in spite of all that, the guy last year threw for 4,000 yards. The guy this year is going to throw for 4,000 yards. He's running the ball more than ever. Instead of listening to some jackass telling you that Jalen Hurd is coming, is it Hurd or Hurts? Doesn't really fucking matter at this point. It doesn't matter. Oh, sorry, I had a rock moment there for a second. It doesn't matter what his name is. He's Taysom Hill. He's Taysom Hill in green is what he is. Okay? If this guy was so fucking good at football, he'd have a job. All right, just write that down. 32 teams passed on him for a reason. And, and I'm not going to go down a Jalen Hurd rant, because then this show will never end. But Carson Wentz deserves your respect, and if you've got an owner out there in your league slipping and tripping, you need to take Gardner Minshew and you're first, and go try to get Carson Wentz, because people are slipping. You need to go take anyone. I'll give you Big Ben, playing great, averaging 18 points a game right now. I'll give you Cam Newton in my second. I'm going to give you all these shiny turds, and I'm going to take the guy that wins you fantasy championships. Jerry, I'm going to end this on one more mini victory lap. The guy who is currently the QB 13, because that's his fucking career average, in Jared Goff. I told you this time last year, buy Jared Goff. He's a solid play. If you want tomorrow's newspaper today, buy Carson Wentz. Oh, and if you're bored, go to Spotrac, go to Over the Cap, and look at his salary cap and his contract. This motherfucker ain't going nowhere until 2024 at the earliest because they owe him a shit pile of money. So, buy Carson Wentz and put some respect on that man's name. Jared, I'm done. I'm going to mute my microphone and catch my breath.
Tell him, Randy. There you go. And listen, if we're going to just forecast a little bit, that playoff matchup in a dome against Arizona, who lost to Detroit and has a good offense, so you're going to need to score points. And then championship week in a dome against the Dallas Cowboys defense that is so unbelievably piss poor that Kenyon Drake can go off and have a 69-yard touchdown in garbage time and cost me my Scott Fishbowl. Not that I'm still fucking bitter about it, but I am. Randy, I love that call. And it's going to take me into my guy a little bit because it's Jalen Reagor. He's going to be tough to get just because the dude's good and it hasn't been too long. But I love the Carson Wentz love. And we've been on Carson Wentz, so it sort of hurts to see him throwing the no-nos that he's been throwing. But like you said, this man is out here with nobody. J-Jaw finally scored on a Miles Sanders fumble. Cool, thanks, bud.
They used to have these guys clock in by the hour and would give these guys a ham sandwich. These guys now are coming from a temp agency. They've got like staff Mark from down the street, sitting like I could literally see like the Howie Roseman, the GM, like he's literally on the phone with a temp agency. Listen, I need a left tackle, a right guard, I need a third string running back, and can any of these sons of bitches catch the football? I could literally hear them on the phone.
He's not even wasting the good ham. He's not even using the honey baked ham on their sandwiches.
It's not even real cheese. It says cheese product. Anyway, who are you looking to buy?
All right, so I mentioned Reagor, but he's going to be tough just because, people took him early. He's shown something, so that one's going to be tough. My other guy, and I cannot promise that this man is not Hakeem Butler. I will just say that here and now, but it's Denzel Mims, and I know that he's got a little bit of a similar profile, and I know that's bit me in the ass once, but he's going to be a lot cheaper than Hakeem Butler was when I took him back then. And he's on the Jets, which is, good God, one of the worst atrocities that football has ever seen. And I lived through the 2008 Detroit Lions. This team might be worse than they are, just so piss poor. So that is going to make him even cheaper. Who the hell knows if Sam Darnold's going to be back then? I would guess he is, but I don't really know if that's going to be better or worse than Joe Flacco. I would take him because he's going to be extremely cheap and just hope that something good happens. I think he is one of the great cheap acquisitions that you could make at this time of the year that could potentially work out well for you. You're going to want to hold on to him and just hope that Adam Gase gets the hell out of there, which he's not. Adam Gase is staying there because they're doing exactly what they want to do. Exactly. They're doing exactly what they want to do. They want Trevor Lawrence.
Why would you fire him?
Bingo. No, that's exactly the point. That's why I don't understand these people. Every single week they lose. Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't fire Adam Gase yet. Of course they didn't fire Adam Gase yet. They want Trevor Lawrence. And
he's got a job to do.
As the coach, he's going to lose. Oh, my God. It's something, man.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 7 one-loss teams right behind them. So the Jets have won 0, obviously. Washington, the Giants, the Falcons, the Jags, Minnesota, Houston, which now goes to Miami, and the Chargers. Those are all one-win teams. And then Philadelphia and Cincinnati are 1-4-1. There are teams clamoring. Just like in a few weeks there will be teams clamoring for a playoff spot. Adam Gase is doing what you need him to do. Luckily for them, Washington and the Giants and Philly could still win that division. I actually heard Peter King say today that he thinks the Giants will win that division. That is crazy. So, anyway, Jerry, this one's a lot. This show was a lot of fun. Next week we'll kind of do next week maybe with the running backs what we did last week with the quarterbacks. We'll kind of go around the room. We'll do a temperature check and maybe we'll wrangle up a guest. But man, this was a lot of fun. I gotta vent all of my Carson, because I'm a big Carson Wentz stan, by the way. If you're watching live on YouTube, I'm wearing my green shirt. Now, this is not an Eagles shirt. It happens to be an old school Eagles green shirt. That was not by design. But, much like Birdman said, you got to put some respect on that man's name. I was fired up. Jerry, I'm fired up to get you back here next week. What else you got going on? I've got to do the big bet tomorrow. What's going on with you up in Ann Arbor area?
Nothing.
before we head out?
The leaves are changing colors. It's starting to look good. Getting cold as hell though. That's no fun. But
Did you get a pumpkin?
Hell no. You think I'm gonna do a pump? Man, I'm too lazy for that nonsense.
I could see Mrs. Jerry potentially with a pumpkin.
We actually talked about it. We might actually do it. Don't tell her. Hopefully she didn't hear me just say that. Otherwise we're gonna end up carving my ass off. But no, listen. If I'm gonna send these people out with anything, it's right now is when it is so critical to manipulate your opponents. They have injuries. Bye weeks are starting. You need to put your polo on. You need to tuck it in over your fupa into your khakis, and you need to sell your assets to them to make them seem better. You have Lamar Jackson on a bye week. You've had Cortland Sutton. Here, let me go buy Cortland Sutton from you. He's not going to help you win. Use your opponent's weaknesses as your advantage. I don't want to sound like Sun Tzu in The Art of War, but it sort of came out like that. Now is the time. It's not necessarily always about you acquiring the things that you need. The selling of trading is making your opponent better, but making you better at the same time. I know that's cliche as hell, but it's what people don't do. They just want to win the trade. Look at their situation and determine who you're going to trade and what you're going to trade. It's unbelievable how many people will send me a trade that does a tinker's fuck for my team, and I don't know what the hell they're thinking. So just look at your opponent's team, understand the situations that they're going through, and look at where they're at in the standings. Also, Randy, one more big thing. Look at the standings right now. You can tell whose first round pick you want and whose you don't. And if you have the guy that's 5-1's first round pick, now's the time you need to sell it to either get someone that has a better first round pick, or you need to sell it to get an asset. That is how I'm going to end it right there.
All right, I'm gonna because this has been a little bit of a longer show. I'm gonna reward those that stuck around. I'm gonna give them a patron level tidbit to chew on as they go into this Dynasty weekend. I want you to look at your roster, whether you're a contender or whether you're a pretender, and I want you to ask yourself, where do I see each player on this roster in 6 months? Meaning, in April, where is this dude gonna be? Is his stock going to be up, down, or hold? And what is the likelihood of each scenario? You're gonna circle a handful of names, and then you're gonna take this Travis Fulgham. Well, we know Jalen Reagor's coming back. We know that this is going to be a tremendous wide receiver class. If you listen to the WarZone like I do, you would know that. But it's going to be a tremendous wide receiver class this year. And the odds of him and Jalen Reagor getting company are high, are very high. And even though he's doing good now, can the undrafted rookie who bounced around from a couple of teams, can he hold off a guy with round 1 or round 2 NFL draft capital? And if you, not me, not Jerry, not the Easter Bunny, not Batman, if you don't think that he can do that, then you need to move him right now for whatever you can get for him. And we can talk about the undrafted free agent guy like Jalen Reagor, like James Robinson, and you can go all the way to the tippy top of the mountain and talk about guys like J.K. Dobbins, like Cam Akers, and so many more. Ask yourself, where is this player going to be in 6 months from now? And if the answer is not good, if the odds are not good, you need to act on this information. That, my friends, is how you write tomorrow's newspaper today. Jerry, that's how we're taking this one home.
Man, that is perfect. Send him out of here.
All right, so on behalf of that man, his name is Jerry Sinclair. You can find him on Twitter at JerrySinDWZ. You can find me on the Twitter at DWZMemphis. And on behalf of Jerry, here at the Dynasty WarZone, we are just trying to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll see you back here. Well, if you're back here tomorrow, we'll be talking big bets. And if you're wanting to see Jerry Sinclair, he'll be back here next Tuesday for the Wednesday pod. Have a great week, guys. Talk to you soon. There you go, Jerry. That's one of the best nuggets I can give him for free.
Listen, that was fun too.
That was like pie. What's the little gecko say? It's like pie with chips for free. All right. Speaking of for free, I've got to go to bed. Good night, Jerry.
All right. Later, buddy.